This week's portion is Chukas. This week's portion is Vayakel in Exodus, but this Shabbos is Parshas Parah. It's one of the special readings. So we're going to read from Parshas Parah today. And that's Bamidbar, Numbers, chapter 19. You have that there, Jeffrey? Yeah, but Dan, can you please bring a second Chumash here? Can you please bring one more for Jeff?
No, I don't need it.
Oh, you have it? Okay, you don't need to bring it. Numbers chapter 19, verse 1. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam v'nivro. Well, this week is Parshas Parah. So Dan must be very excited because Dan's a Queens boy. And when Dan grew up in Queens, St. John's was good. They haven't been good in 40 years. 40 years. When I was in 5th grade, they were good. That's when they had Chris Mullen, Walter Barry, Bill Wennington, Ron Rowan. And now all they had to do was hire a coach who had a few scandals. That's how you know he's a good coach. Okay, chapter 19, verse 1.
Chapter 19 of which book?
Of Numbers. Not Exodus, Numbers.
Oh.
Numbers, because we're doing Parashas Parah, which is Chukas. So we're studying about the red heifer. When I was in Israel this past trip, I had the opportunity to see them raising 5 red heifers in a town in Samaria called Shiloh. So now we study about the red heifer.
Is that the town that has a large Samaritan population?
That town has only a Jewish population. It's a yeshuv, and so there's only Jews live there. I mean, actually, they have a couple of actually like some non-Jewish workers there. But like, for example, these red heifers were doing very poorly. And then they brought in a non-Jewish person who was an expert on these cows. And now the cows are doing very well. So, but I would say there's nobody who's like, there is a town with the Samaritans living in the Shomron, which I visited, but that is nearby Shiloh.
Why are we reading this Shabbat?
Oh, so why are we reading this passage for this Shabbat? So the reason is because in order for a person to be purified, a person becomes tamei meik, comes in contact with the dead body. In order for them to be purified, they can't bring a sacrifice and eat from the sacrificial food unless they are purified from having come in contact with the dead. And in order to be purified, the red heifer's ashes, called the mechatas, have to be sprinkled upon you. So we want to get ready for Pesach, to eat the carbon Pesach. So therefore we have to read about this now so we can get ready for Pesach. And then next Shabbos will be Parashas HaChodesh, which is the Shabbos before Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So God spoke to Moses and Aaron saying, Zos chukas Torah. This is the chukas of the Torah. This is the chukas of the Torah, Asher tziva Hashem lemor, that God commanded, saying, Daber b'nei Yisrael, v'yekhu elecha para aduma tamima. Take for yourself a red cow, pure, asher ein ba mum, that has no blemish, asher lo all, that has no yoke on it. It's never had a yoke on it. It's never worked. So you have to take, in order to be purified, a complete red cow. Zot chukat Torah. This is the laws of the Torah. Why do we have to? Why is this called the chok? Unusual form. So why doesn't God just say, command the children of Israel to take a red cow. Why do I say this is the law of the Torah? So Rashi tells us, Lafisha Satan Umasa Olam moaning as Israel, because Satan and the nations of the world are harassing the Jewish people, saying, "Ma mitzvah, what is this commandment?" They question the nature of this commandment. Excuse me. The fundamental concept that's problematic is the ashes of the red heifer purify those who are impure through contact with the dead, yet those who are involved in the purification process themselves become impure. So they say this doesn't make any sense. So they laugh at it. Ma tam yesh ba, what reason is there? Afikach kasav ba'chuka. Therefore they wrote about it. It's a chok. Gezerei mofanai. It's a decree from before me. Ein lecha reshut leharher achara. You have no permission to reflect upon it. I remember one time, I forgot his name. Now I just remembered his name. The chief judge of the Court of Appeals in D.C., his name was Sentel. So one time, one time he was at my home for a Shabbos dinner, and it was very nice. And we were talking about why you have to follow the law. And I said this reason. We're saying different reasons. And I said this reason was that's the one that works for me. Is the law? You have no permission. You have to follow the law. He was a nice man. I don't know is he still with us in this world? He came with his quirks, the whole thing.
So he was Jewish?
No. But he wasn't Jewish. But he said, I'm the most Jewish one in my family. I'm the only one who wants to do the Seder. He said, I have a brother-in-law who's Jewish, but he doesn't do anything. This guy was good. I liked him. Moshe, grab the Chumash. Okay, so anyway, you have no permission to challenge. This is the fundamental idea of a chok, of a concept that we accept the laws upon the Torah, and we don't challenge them. So people look at this Rashi, and they challenge it. Why does Rashi use a language that's double? They say, he says, Rashi writes, the Satan of the nations of the world challenge Israel, and they say, what is this mitzvah, and what reason is there for it? Therefore, it's called a chok. It's a decree from before me, and you have permission. So why do they say in two expressions, what is this mitzvah, and why do they challenge it, and what reason is it? Meaning it's a double expression. What is this mitzvah? I would serve you fresh bagels, Colby, but guess what happened? We didn't get fresh bagels today. Otherwise, I would have served you. Yeah, I would have served it to you gladly. Yes, I did. Look at your phone. It says, what is this commandment? What reason is there? Also in the decree, there's an answer. It says, it is the decree before me, and you have no permission to challenge it. It's a double expression. So the Sha'ar Bat Rabim says the following. He says, when a Jew wants to do a mitzvah, the Yetzer Hara comes to stop him. And the Yetzer Hara asks him, when a Jew wants to do a mitzvah, the Yetzer Hara comes and asks him, what is this mitzvah? What value is it to do this mitzvah? Don't you have something more useful to do with your time than this mitzvah? People laughed at me when I wanted to go visit the red heifer 3 weeks ago. They said, what value is it? And when he doesn't listen to the Yetzer Hara and he says he's going to do it anyway, the Yetzer Hara comes back and asks, what reasoning is there for it? Do you know the reason for this mitzvah? The Yetzer Hara wants at least to say, once he says he's going to do it anyway, the Yetzer Hara is trying to say, this is the most important mitzvah. Do you realize how great you are by doing this mitzvah? To inject him with arrogance for doing the mitzvah. So for these two reasons, Rashi says, for the first reason, he says, before you do the mitzvah, say to the Yetzer Hara, this is what I was commanded to do by God. And for the second question, the performance of the mitzvah, you have no permission to ask about it. Rather, it's just a continuation of all the other mitzvot and good deeds. Meaning to say that Satan comes at us in multiple ways. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak says the Satan wants to harass the Jewish people for the reason of the Parah Aduma. He wants that the people will say that the reason is because he's coming to atone for the sin of the golden calf and remind us of the golden calf, about God, about which God says, I'm always going to remember your sin. And so therefore we say there's no reason. The logical reason is to atone for the golden calf. But we don't want to say we're atoning for the golden calf because then God will remember our sin. What a beautiful answer by Rabbi Levi Yitzchak. You like that? Very clever, very clever. Right. Rabbi Yaakov of Lubun says the following. He says in the Gemara that when we were at Mara, we were given this commandment of Shabbos and Parah Aduma and the laws of judges. And this was before the golden calf. So they couldn't say the reason because we still might not have sinned. So therefore we say there was no reason. These are all very clever answers. That was said in the name of, this was the father, the one who said this answer, was the father of the Rebbe Reb Heschel, who was the grandfather of Abraham Joshua Heschel. So this was said by the great-grandfather of Rabbi Heschel. So from in the name of the Vilna Gaon, they say the following. He says, why are you not supposed to look for a reason for the laws of the mitzvos? Because it says you have no permission to even think about it. Why not? So it says, the Mishnah tells us, Mishnah in Shabbos says, Lo yikra or aner. It says, don't read by the light of a candle. And there's no reason why it says that. But in Bryce it says, because if you're reading by the light of a candle on Shabbos, maybe it'll move to adjust the flame. So Rishmael ben Elisha says, I can read and I won't adjust the flame. One time he was reading and he was about to adjust it. And he stopped himself. He said, look how great the words of the sages are that they said, don't read by the light of the flame because you'll come to adjust it. Because I was about to adjust it. So why in the Brisa does it say how great are the words of the sages? Why does the Brisa teach us more than the Mishnah? The explanation is when he was studying in the Brisa, the reason Rabbi Shmuel thought he would read it. When we learned the reason of something, you could say, oh, that reason doesn't apply to me. That reason doesn't apply to me. That's why in the Brisa, Rabbi Shmuel said, okay, I can read it without adjusting the flame. But when it comes to and so therefore, he almost fell. So if we don't have the reason for something, we're less likely to falter. You might think, when are you more likely to not do to do the mitzvah when you know the reason or when you don't know the reason. When you know the reason, you're less likely to do it because you think it doesn't apply. So you're better off not knowing the reasoning. Maimonides would not like that approach.
Is a reason. Every basic belief.
Yeah.
And then you get to the section based on hundreds of language. And when it comes to your head, he says, there is a reason. I just don't know.
Oh, that's what he says.
There is a reason. I just don't know. And that's a great way of saying to a teacher. Because my mom doesn't know. How are any of us going to make it? And the answer is good. Just doesn't know.
It's interesting that he says he doesn't know because I've heard so many reasons for it. But what? That he didn't find. And when they say there's no reason, they mean there's no reason for all the aspects of it. There's different reasons for different aspects, but there's no reason that's all inclusive of every aspect of it. That's the answer. No, he would say there's reasons for parts of it, but there's no reason for everything. No, excuse me. I didn't say it correctly. When Maimonides says he doesn't know the reason, it means he doesn't know the reason for every single aspect of it, but he knows the reason for a lot of it, for a lot of this commandment of the red heifer. He just doesn't know the reason for every single aspect of it. That's what I'm saying. He doesn't know for every single aspect. Like there's a lot of questions about it, but the basic idea, he would know the reasoning. His go-to reasonings are very often very unsatisfactory. His reasoning was usually it's like the pagans used to do it this way, so we'll do it this way. I mean, that's kind of like what his go-to answer is. So speaking to your question, that's a very interesting. The Divrei Shaul, which I think is a great-great-grandfather of Shaul Weinreb. So he has a commentary on this. Yeah, you could ask him if he's a direct descendant of the Divrei Shaul. I believe he is. So, because Shaul comes a straight line from Hasidic dynasty. So Solomon said about the whole Torah I understood, but the red heifer I investigated and I asked, and I said I will understand it, but it's still distant from me. That's what Shlomo Melch says about the red heifer. So in the Talmud, it says that Kohelet wanted to be like Moshe. Heavenly voice said he'll never be a prophet as great as Moses. Solomon thought that since he was a wise man, and a wise man is better than a prophet, he could even understand that which Moshe didn't get with his own prophecy. So our sages explained that Moshe understood the reasoning for the red heifer. And so therefore, Solomon thought he could also understand. But really, and this is what the Divrei Shaul says, a wise man can only understand something that's cerebral. But the red heifer has no explanation. It's just a law. So here he argues with Maimonides, according to what you said. He says it has no explanation. So I guess it's a dispute. Does it have an explanation and we just don't know it, or does it have no explanation? He says the red heifer has no explanation. It's a law without explanation. And that's why Solomon was unable to understand it. And only Moshe knew the answer. That there would be an explanation, but you need a prophet for it. But wisdom alone would not be able to understand. How are you doing, John? Did you bring Avi? Oh, okay, well, I'll give you something for him. Yeah, John, also, a couple of your customers are looking for the soup. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow John can make us some fresh soup. Yeah. No, you tell him what your favorite is. So he knows the matzo. Everyone loves matzo ball soup. I mean, it's only and if you don't love the matzo ball soup, but the only thing is the matzo ball soup, we only have one more week to make it because once it comes to Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which is March 30th, then we're not going to hold off on the matzo ball soup till after Pesach. No, no, you can't make the matzo ball soup before Pesach because the custom is once it's actually my custom is not even to eat matzah from Purim until Pesach, but many people are say just the Rosh Chodesh, and it's actually prohibited to eat matzah on the eve of Pesach. But many have the custom going back to Rosh Chodesh. Some have the custom going back to Purim. So I don't eat it from Purim. Do you know? Do you know why you don't eat it? Why you don't eat the matzah? So it's really a question. Matzah ball soup you really could eat because it's not matzah. Do you know why you don't eat the matzah until Pesach? You don't stop eating it. So matzah ball soup you could eat because it's not in the form of matzah. But the reason is because no, because eating the Gemara says eating the matzah before the seder is like being with one's fiance before the wedding. When the Rebbe said this, there was a wise guy in the class, and he opened up his mouth from the back and he shouted out, "I tried them both, and there's no comparison."
Saying that. This is true, like, it takes to break something that's very
Right. So we have to make a break. That's exactly the point. We have to make the break. Also, I want to mention that I have matzah that I baked in Israel will be arriving, God willing, this week, and I'll have everybody some matzah. Okay, so now we continue. So we continue with the next verse. Hello, Yoav. Good afternoon, my friend. Baruch Hashem. It says in the verse 3, Unesatemoto El Elazar HaKohen. Oh, wait. We didn't even do the second Rashi on the verse. Lecha, you shall take for yourself this red heifer. Olamini Grace Al Shemecha. The red heifer is always called by your name. It's called the cow that Moses made in the wilderness. Meaning to say, they took all future cows were ascribed to Moshe, that their ashes, that some of the ashes of the cow Moshe prepared, mixed with them. So now we have a big issue because they're making the red heifers now, but we don't have the original ashes of the red heifer of Moses. So how are they going to mix it with it? We have these ashes of the red heifer, and they're growing them. They're growing these red heifer cows. And adamat mima, a complete red. Tamima bad mimos. It should be perfect in redness. Shem hayuba shtei sarot shcharot psua. If there were two black hairs, it's disqualified. Ironically, in the elsewhere in the Torah, we have the idea that if somebody has two hairs, they become considered an adult. Two hairs of genitalia. So here we're seeing if this cow has two hairs, it's no longer an adult. It's no longer pure. So the two hairs symbolizes the lack of purity.
rather than possible comes to them, have 5 or 6, give enough ashes.
No, because you sprinkle it. There were 9 red heifers in history. Because you mix it with water and then you just sprinkle 1 drop.
2 million, 5 million, 100 years. That's to me.
Well, not what? How many years? Yeah. So from the time, how many people?
Somebody should do the math. The number is so difficult.
Right. Well, maybe there weren't so many people who were ritually impure. They were much more careful about that back then. Yeah. All right, we'll stop here. We'll stop here.